Hello ghouls and goblins, welcome to ExpiryTV. Today we will be reviewing Season 7 Shadow Priest Rogue WoW Arena 2v2 highlights from 2500 plus CR. Starting with Feral Druid Disc Priest. Shadow Priest Rogue, or SPR for shorts, favorite and potentially most favored matchup. The Feral Druid is vulnerable to shadow spell damage, Dispels, wound poison, and rogue melee burst. They rely heavily on their Disc Priest partner to survive. The general strategy for SPR, Shadow Priest Rogue, is to dispel and burst the Druid while controlling the Priest. The opponent's strategy is to disrupt SPR's opener, play defensive and line of sight with damage goes in between from the Feral Druid in order to out-sustain the Shadow Priest Rogue. Here we're fighting the young Josito Jones and just blasting the Feral Druid, down he goes. There are opportunities to kill the Discipline Priest in this matchup as well. This is past the midpoint of the game where the Feral Druid had trinketed the opener. He ends up in a full blind. They have no pain suppression. We send a full go on the Priest. We Shadow Dance at the very end with silence before he's dead. Death Knight Preg Paladin, also known as RetProt Paladin, SPR's least favorite and potentially most challenging matchup. They have incredibly powerful defensive abilities that allow for maximum uptime and damage output. DK Preg Paladin has devastating damage over time and area of effect abilities on top of immunities. The general strategy for Shadow Priest Rogue is to crowd control the Paladin and do damage in the opener to the Death Knight in order to force defensive enemy cooldowns. After that, you have to survive the enemy crowd control and their damage cooldowns, namely Gargoyle, through peels and heals. The Rogue has to peel for you, you have to kite, position, and heal yourself as the Shadow Priest. You want to find windows of opportunity to cross CC and kill. In this game, we kill the Paladin because they have no abilities left, and I also got a lucky MD on the bubble early on. In this game, we see that the Paladin bubbles the sap, bops our opener on the Death Knight, and we haven't really done anything. You'll notice the Omni bar towards the middle bottom of the screen. They are using all of their abilities, all of their cooldowns just to generate pressure, and that's what DK Preg wants to do, is they want to run you over with their abilities. However, the Rogue and the Shadow Priest are able to kite out and survive their damage. Gargoyle is disappearing here soon. The Paladin has no bubble, no trinket, and this is one of their last abilities, Hand of Sacrifice on the Death Knight. However, we're not out of the woods yet. The Death Knight reconnects on the Shadow Priest into a full fear that he has to trinket because there's no Lichborn. We notice the Paladin has no trinket and has no bubble, so we send a damage go on the Paladin with silence, and down the Paladin goes. In this game, we get a nice sap opener on the Paladin into a silence damage go on the Death Knight. He anti-magic shells late at about 60% health, and this is where they start using their cooldowns to generate pressure. The Paladin bubbles out of CC, the DK trinkets the CC, they pop Gargoyle, anti-magic zone, and start blasting me, the Shadow Priest. I narrowly get out of there, the Rogue gets hodged, makes a good decision to trinket there. The DK is at 10%, however, gets a Blessing of Protection, and then through Death Pact and Paladin heals, within a couple seconds is back to full health. There we shackle the remaining Gargoyle, which the Paladin doesn't dispel, fortunately. They reconnect into a double fear, or it looks like the fear may have missed on the Paladin, into a strangulate on the Shadow Priest. And here I am running and kiting for my life. You see the Rogue cheap shots the Paladin, which forces freedom. He kidneys the Paladin, and the Death Knight is slowed behind the pillar. This is where it gets tricky when you walk into the desecrated ground because you get slowed. As the Shadow Priest here, I'm just running around in a circle. The Rogue is kiting, and fortunately this team is not making the decision to swap the Rogue because they could potentially kill him. Here we get a perfect gouge opener on the DK into a Shadow Dance go on the Paladin with silence. He has no bubble, the DK's in a fear, the Paladin is dead. All right, Warrior Holy Paladin. A reasonably balanced matchup versus the best comp in the game. Warrior Holy Paladin are like peanut butter and jelly. They just work. Powerful offensive and defensive abilities mixed with insane utility makes Warrior HPAL the strongest comp in the game, especially for healer damage dealer. Here we're just going Warrior and running him over, but you notice how they can live even with very little HP. The general strategy for SPR is cross CC setups in order to force cooldowns. Kite and peel Warrior damage, kill when the enemy team is out of cooldowns with stuns, silence, and fear. The opponent's strategy is to rotate defensive and offensive cooldowns to maintain maximum damage uptime and pressure on the Shadow Priest Rogue, disrupt SPR damage rotation, prevent Rogue re-stealth, and do not overextend. This matchup can be over very fast or take a very long time to play out. You can go either Warrior or Paladin. In the last game, we bulldozed the Warrior with wound poison. Here, we notice because of positioning and cooldown usage that the Paladin is open for a go. We force bubble on the opener. I get the lucky MD and the Warrior doesn't kick. Down goes the Paladin. Here we have a random high MMR Discipline Priest and Prot Warrior where we end up getting a nice kill swap on the Priest. Start this matchup out with a sap on the Priest into a full fear. Big damage on the Warrior. He reflects the Vampiric Touch, which is a bit unfortunate, but we're still gas pedaling here. The Discipline Priest cannot dispel wound poison, so the 50% healing reduction active on the Warrior is gonna stick. The Rogue Trinket Spear probably could have dispelled him, but that's okay. And they start recovering here. We get the Warrior to 800 HP, but I've already trinketed a Priest Fear. Now I get full feared, the Priest is casting Penance, the Warrior is recovering. However, I notice that the Warrior doesn't have Trinket. The dot on the Warrior is falling. We make the call here because they don't have Pain Suppression or Priest Trinket to full blind the Warrior into a go on the Priest, cheap shot Kidney with the silence. Down goes the Priest on the swap. This is Discipline Priest and Protection Paladin, a tanky team with surprisingly high and consistent damage output. The general strategy is to sap and force cooldowns / trinkets on the opener. Run around a lot. Gouge into fear, run and or reset on big enemy cooldowns or trinkets. Try to line of sight the Discipline Priest while kiting the Paladin. Kill with Shadow Dance when they are out of cooldowns. So here we just blinded the Paladin, forced bubble. He had trinketed the opener. He bops the Priest to stop our go on the Priest. And right now, the Rogue and I, the Shadow Priest, are going for resets. I recover here. I'm trying to drop my 5 stacks of the Paladin dot, the Judgment, on me. He swaps to the Rogue. We get a nice cheap shot on the Priest, which gets freedomed late into a full kidney, into a trinket. Double fear from the Priest because we double feared them. The Rogue cloaks at the last second here and just begins kiting. Great gouge from the Rogue with sprint, kiting the damage so he doesn't die here. I do not have trinket, so this Hand of Justice as well as the rep that just happened are going to stick. The Rogue again kiting beautifully. The Priest fails to dot the Rogue, so he's actually completely fine here. Rogue gets a nice cheap shot with the Vanish on the Paladin. He freedoms the cheap shot into a full kidney, into a DR cheap shot. We silence the Priest, but they are out of cooldowns. There's no bubble. The cheeky step kick on the Priest heal. Down goes the Paladin. All right, here we have Shaman Warlock. Anyone who enters 2v2 Arena as a Shaman or a Warlock is brave. It's a difficult comp to run, but powerful if played correctly. The general strategy is to sap and cross CC the open, deal with the pet, whether you death the seduce or kick it, full send your kill target, either the Shaman or the Warlock or the pet, reset for second go if necessary, and kill / CC pets. Don't stack for Shadow Fury. Right here you see me doing the box jump that was patched early in Season 7, so you actually can't jump like that anymore on Dalaran Sewers if you're Troll. You want to dispel Bloodlust, prevent damage, and dispel the Rogue so he can reset. Locker Shaman without Trinket can die in a Shadow Dance. So here we're pretty much just exhausting all of their cooldowns. We dot the Warlock, but we notice the Shaman does not have Trinket, and here we're just trying to buy time, wait for the Rogue cooldowns. We have Shadow Dance as well as Cloak of Shadows coming up soon, and a Shaman with no Trinket. Fear the Lock out of Tremor range, and Shadow Dance the Shaman. The Warlock does not Trinket the Fear, and his pet is feared, so he can't stop our go. We get a nice Shadow Dance Silence kill on the Shaman. Here we have another Warlock Shaman team. However, instead of Restoration Shaman, this is an Elemental Shaman. Here we get just about the worst opener ever. The Rogue gets Shadow Furied out of Stealth. However, they aren't able to connect damage over time abilities off of it, so it's okay. The Shaman gets sapped. I sit a full Seduce because of the pet positioning. My positioning here is not very good at all. Into a DR Seduce, and basically the Rogue is just soloing the Warlock right now, forces Trinket on the opener by himself without having to commit any abilities. I eat a full Hex there, which I probably could have silenced, end up getting my Trinket that way. We have Bloodlust on all 3 targets. I Dispel the Warlock and I try to Dispel some of the other ones, but here we get a full Cheap Shot Kidney on the Warlock, and he's just dead. The Rogue deletes the Warlock. Alright, Mage Warlock. This is a fun caster comp, but better suited for 3s. You can take advantage of the fact they have no healing. You don't see this comp often in 2s, but it is kind of fun to fight if you do. The Mage pushes in. I fake the counterspell with the cancel cast into Fear on Mage. The Rogue beelines for the Warlock. I dot the Warlock and silence him so he can't port. Late Dispel on the Rogue. Probably could have dispelled him earlier. Horrifying the Warlock so he can't move. Down he goes. Okay, Shadow Priest and Subtlety Rogue Mirror. This matchup is all about the open. May the best SPR win. The general strategy is that the sap battle is important. Here you see we're both sapped at the same time and you're trying to get a slight advantage on the timing. The Shadow Priest is vulnerable to full damage rotation opens, and forcing Rogue Trinket / preventing Rogue damage can help maintain uptime or allow for swaps / recovery. Fast reaction is necessary. Resets can make or break in longer games, and a Rogue without Trinket can die if the opposite Rogue opens. Here we're sending the Shadow Priest, however, he gets a full reset here. Our Rogue gets blinded into a full sap, which he chooses to sit, and I am terrified for my life here. I can die at any moment from the Rogue reopening. However, our Rogue is sitting with his Trinket ready to open the enemy Rogue, knock him out with the Holy Nova, and our Rogue uses his Trinket to get full stuns on the enemy Rogue without a Trinket. Fear the enemy Priest, and the damage of Shadow Priest Rogue on a defenseless Rogue is too much. Down the enemy Rogue goes. Here we have another SPR mirror matchup against the young Bubbalo. We are currently playing out the sap battle portion. We have a slight sap lead, but the enemy Rogue does delay it. And the thing to note here is that the enemy Shadow Priest has the Fear Ward, which is going to end up being really bad for them. They get the opener with the silence, however the Rogue hesitates to open. We stop their Shadow Priest, he does not get the Vampiric Touch, and the Rogue gets full feared because he doesn't have Fear Ward into the Horrify on the Rogue. With Vampiric Touch and our damage on the Shadow Priest, we get full dots, he has to disperse. I get full kidneyed here, but the enemy Shadow Priest is dead. Discipline Priest and Subtlety Rogue. The highest skill cap comp in the game, potentially. Will the light or darkness win out? Shadow Priest Rogue trades heals and utility for damage and crowd control. The general strategy is to kill the Rogue before the Rogue kills you. The sap battle, again, is important, and cleaning the target, aka dispelling the enemy target, plus full dot rotation causes mayhem. DPR will look to punish SPR's lack of healing by resetting and playing around trinkets. Pain suppression must be forced early. Catching an enemy in full stuns or full crowd control can swing momentum for the win. And we'll see here that again, they blind sap our Rogue, However, he trinkets the sap into a DR blind on the enemy rogue, waiting on the DRs. I get full feared here with Fear Ward like a dog. Bad play from me, should have Fear Warded that. But I do get my damage over time abilities on the enemy rogue. We notice they're running out of cooldowns. They still do have a pain suppression. Force the enemy priest trinket there with a fear, late pain suppression. He's spamming heals. I don't know why I'm waddling over to the priest. I don't have heal. We get another full stun and cross silent CC on the priest. And the rogue is full dotted in a kidney, but I get feared. We get double feared here. Our rogue could have cloaked that and ended the game potentially. I am in a lot of trouble here because the rogue has uptime, but our rogue comes back and just one-shots him. Crazy. All right, here we have another DPR. Terrible opener. We lose the sap battle, and the enemy Disc Priest starts purging all of my buffs into full dots of fear on me. Holy fire. Does he send the Shadow Fiend? He sends the rocket. The rogue ambushes out of stealth into cheap shot, gets cross silence on the priest. We force rogue trinket with the kidney shot. However, he gets horrored off it into a DR cheap shot, and the rogue is at 2% with a rupture. However, disciplined priest penance heals are going to keep him alive. The ghost swaps here to where they're attacking our rogue. I am healing the rogue here on the kidney shot so that he can save trinket so he doesn't get full blind sapped. The rogue kicks me on holy and then goes for a reset here. Our rogue does the same, so we both reset here. Neither of the enemy has trinkets. I have trinket. I get feared. I trinket the feared, clean the priest, trying to just maybe let my rogue get a sap so I don't commit to the engage here. The kill target in this scenario for us is the rogue. Full fear on the priest. Here I'm going to set up some damage because I'm feeling healthy. I cast a VT on the priest, dot him, and just run away. This can actually be really bad because he can let dots fall and then sap me. But the eye is coming up right now, and our rogue is in position to take the eye. He also has trinket, and the enemy does not. I get full feared here, which is really bad. But our rogue had prep, so he takes the eye, vanishes, cheap shots the rogue from stealth. I silence the priest. There's no trinket on this kidney shot. And then we get the full blind on the priest. The rogue cloaks my damage, but we have bleeds on him. And I'm positioning here to fear the priest, but down goes the rogue first. This is Survival Hunter and Discipline Priest, a very high skill comp. You don't see this comp too often, but the hunters that know how to play it really well. The general strategy is to play around Priest and Hunter CC and set up big full damage over time. Damage goes on the Hunter with silence on Priest. You want to avoid / have your rogue eat traps and dodge double fears from enemy Priest. You can also blind Hunter and go Priest. If the Hunter can successfully out-kite the rogue, winning is difficult. So here I end up in a full trap, which is pretty much what this comp relies on, but we did force Hunter Trinket earlier. He silences me out. Shield the rogue. They almost always go rogue in this matchup from my experience. He cloaks and vanishes out, but gets flared in his vantage, so the Hunter still has uptime. Desperately trying to get the priest's fear ward here in order to get a fear, get a nice gouge setup, full fear the priest. The hunter's deterrence is falling. Priest chooses to sit this fear even though we have no follow-up CC for him, so maybe he didn't need to do that. Divine him for healing the rogue back here. Priest pushes in, fears me for free because my positioning is not too great. Into a scatter trap, but the rogue kidney shots the hunter before he can trap. Full kidney shot with Shadow Dance, silence on priest. And here I'm just chasing the priest for a fear. I get the fear, full vampiric touch on the hunter, shield the rogue because he's still in a lot of trouble. The traps and the silences, but the rogue damage is too much. Down goes the hunter. All right, Shadow Priest and Frost Mage. A scary double DPS caster comp with tons of damage, utility, and crowd control. The general strategy is peeling the SPR with Polymorph plus Fear into huge Shatter / Dot / Deep Freeze combos is how the Shadow Priest Mage wins. Defeat them first by getting maximum damage uptime on the Shadow Priest, forcing dispersion before the Rogue Cloak of Shadows. Look for goes when you are on crowd control, diminishing returns, DRs, or avoid CC through positioning. get Shadow Priest magic damage uptime on enemy Shadow Priest. You can punish the Mage for overextending and make sure to Dispel frequently. And here, the win, this is a well-fought matchup against a great team, but the Mage eventually overextends, they don't have any resources, and down he goes. Okay, this is Double Rogue, aka Double Dog. Pray you find them before they find your rogue. That's what happened here. And I actually deathed the blind out of stealth, which was sweet. But it's a squishy comp if you can disrupt their opener or catch them out. Deadly if they get the perfect open. Okay, Enhancement Shaman and RetProt Paladin, aka Preg Paladin. This is similar to Preg DK, and you typically must avoid Shaman Wolves while kiting both of them, whittling enemy cooldowns with peels, and set up a crowd control go based on enemy CDs and positioning after Wolves. Right there we get a nice kill in the opener. The longer the game goes, the better for SPR, and this is the last match of the video, but you'll notice here we start by killing the pets. If you're Night Elf, you maybe don't have to do this, but he sends the pets, overextends the pets, we kill them. I trinket the Hand of Justice there, and right now it's all about kiting. The Rogue is over there handling the Shaman. We get Shaman Rage there and Bubble, so this is their big damage reduction immunity phase, and I disperse here so that I don't take more damage. CC the Shaman after this. I'm going to fear the Paladin after his Bubble, but it's still on cooldown, and slowly sending damage on the Shaman. Shaman is very far. Nice kick on the Hex from the Rogue on the team. And now I'm trying to get in position to finish off the Shaman. He has no Shaman Rage. Lives at 1,000 HP with Blessing of Protection. I'm not there. I can't actually do damage. However, Mass Dispel gets the Blessing of Protection from around the corner. Neither team has CCs, but Silence comes back up. Nice gouge on the Paladin. Kill the Tremor Totem into a full fear on the Paladin. He gets out of it with a late Tremor, and it's not enough. Down goes the Shaman. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. More videos soon. You can catch live gameplay at ExpiryTV on Twitch, twitch.tv/ExpiryTV. See you all soon. Have a great day.